one of the things that we're going to focus on today, and we've been focusing on for a long period of time, but we're kind of staying our theme is we're always should be hunting for opportunities for collisions. Okay. So what does that mean? Collisions, right? We want to have what feels like organic or sometimes forced, but mostly try to have what feels semi-organic, at least, opportunities for us to have contact with realtors, right? And particularly realtors that we don't know or are currently not getting referrals from. I actually think the single most important predictor, if you were saying, hey, Mark, what's gonna make somebody a good loan officer? The number one thing I would say is somebody's ability to bump into lots of realtors and win those people over, or at least make that person like them a little bit in that first 5 minutes of that first introduction. I think if you're great at that, if you're great at winning people over in 5 minutes and you're great at finding collisions, I think the rest of the job becomes something you can hire somebody else to do. All right. I mean, really, obviously I'd be able to build meaningful relationships from there, but generally, if you can win somebody over in 5 minutes, you're probably pretty good at winning them over the long haul. Now, what are some of the easy ways, right? What are some of our easy give me ways for us to have collisions with realtors? Participate, have fun, talk to me.
Chamber, BNI groups,
networking events.
Yeah, any kind of networking event.
What else? Did anybody read what today's training was on?
I've been having a lot of success with listing agents.
There you go, right? So that's what today's training is all about, right? And so the number one easiest organic collision that we can get to in this business is when we have a buyer and they're putting an offer in on a house. Now, I talk to realtors all the time. I've had the pleasure of going on different podcasts, like Ninja Selling Podcasts. I talk to a bunch of realtors here in Charleston. I'm part of different groups. What percentage of the time do you think the loan officer on an offer is reaching out to the listing agent? According to realtors I talk to, who, by the way, tend to overestimate anything I ask them.
A quarter.
At most. At most. And by the way, it's funny when I say that to somebody, I'll have a realtor that got 20 offers on a house. I'll be like, how many loan officers reached out to you? And they'll be like, one, maybe two. Okay. So I think the actual number is probably somewhere closer to 10%, but it's definitely no more than a quarter. Okay. How many of you guys are reaching out on 100% of the offers that you and your clients are submitting? This is absolutely mission critical to being able to build and grow your business. It's also, in this environment, mission critical to helping your client get a loan, get the offer accepted. It just really is. I cannot tell you how many times I'm not a full-time loan officer, but I live with one. And I cannot tell you how many times that quick conversation about, hey, I just want to let you know this borrower is really qualified. We've got all the stuff, it should be a very easy process, turns into a 30 to 40-minute conversation where two people are falling in love with each other. And suddenly we realize that not only was the offer accepted, but it wasn't the highest offer, right? And so this is huge. I know a guy right now who's going around Charleston. He's dealing with a rookie realtor who's made at least 10 offers on properties over the last month or two. And I'm convinced that if he was with a different realtor, he would have gotten some of those offers accepted. The realtor and the loan officer make a huge difference on the offer side in giving confidence to the seller and the seller's realtor. Does anybody disagree with that? So, because here's what we know. Here's what we know, guys. About 10 to 15% of people will go with the best deal no matter what. And so for those 10 to 15%, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many phone calls you make or whatever it is. That seller is going to go with the highest offer no matter what. We know that, right? And we know that about 5% of people will actually go sometimes with, or, not in this specific situation, but in general, will go with the most expensive thing. So they go to the store, they're buying a television set. They will always buy the most expensive television set because they just assume that more expensive means better. Right? They line up all the 65-inch TVs there and they're like, well, that one's the most expensive. I want the best one. I'm getting that one. That's 5% of people. We know that 10 to 15% of people will go, I want the cheapest one. Quality doesn't really matter to me. I just got to get that TV on my wall. But then what we know is that 80 to 85% of people are looking for some sort of value. It's no different when a realtor or a seller are looking to make a decision on a house. And this is a complicated, stressful process. How many sellers, realtors would rather work with someone they know, like, and trust on a transaction as opposed to a stranger that never reached out? Right? So tell me, what is the downside of a loan officer to reaching out to the seller's agent?
I can't think of one.
You might screw it up. That's it.
I feel like I've
Right?
been asked hard questions by list agents before in regards to their financing, and I don't want to lie or,
Give me an example.
um, like if we're putting an FHA offer, they're like, well, why are they going FHA? I don't want to say because their credit sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is like, listen, I'm not really, here's what I would say. Like, I can't go into the specifics of that scenario, just that, on client confidentiality. But let me just tell you, like, this is a well-qualified FHA application. We've gone through all the stuff. You have nothing to worry about. And so, like, I would just shift the conversation back to, because this is the perfect candidate for an FHA loan. They fit all the boxes, and it's going to be, as long as your house will pass an FHA appraisal, we're going to have no problems during this transaction, right? And so you almost put it back on them, like, as long as you're who you say you are, we will crush this, right? Kind of flip it around on that. But yes, you're right. There is some small amount of risk or stress that's involved in that phone call, which prevents a lot of people from doing it. The risk is worth the reward. Okay. Now, what are you signaling to that seller's agent by making that phone call? About you. Let's be super selfish. Let's assume that you're like me, which is like, yeah, I want to help my client get this house and I want to get this loan. But actually, when I'm making this phone call, even more important to me is my reputation in this town. And I want to make sure that every realtor knows me, likes me, trusts me, and feels like I'm somebody they can count on. That is, when I'm out in the world, that is priority number one for me, is me and my brand. What is my brand? My brand is how people know me, how I behave. I'm not going to lie to get my client a house, because now I'm a liar and I'm not willing to be a liar, right? I would rather my client, if this realtor is like asking me specific questions and I have to answer them, or I feel like I have to do, I would rather tell the truth and not get that client the house than become a liar. Okay. That's just like where my brand is. I'm not gonna have people know me as a liar, because that realtor's never gonna trust me again. And my reputation is my business. Right. But what else? What is, so you're going into this conversation with that focus, right? What are some of the things that that realtor's going to start to assume or know about us if we're the ones calling for this offer? What are they going to think about you?
I had a good 30-minute conversation yesterday with a lady that was attached to a lead I got, and I didn't realize it, but she's the wife of the broker in town at the Keller Williams in Hoover here, and I did not know that. And I friended her before I called her, and I referenced that, and I just started talking about life and about me and how genuine I am and how my goal is to make sure that I work with people that work well with me, and that I'm in it for the customer. And, I don't even really talk about the client and them being well qualified. I just kind of go into them trusting me as a loan officer and that I'm going to get it done for them.
So, Alan, I think that is awesome. I also think it's the second best approach.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys, anybody who's been on training with me before, what do you think my advice to Alan is going to be to maybe alter that call slightly?
Well, I listen to them a lot more than I talk about myself, for one thing.
Okay. Didn't sound like that when you just described it, right? So that's why I'm busting your chops a little bit. So, but I'm sure that you did a better job than on the actual call. But what I'll say is, like, yeah, actually, the way that you can build trust with them is to be genuinely interested about them, right? So spending very little time, so if they ask you a specific question, be like, oh, yeah, I've lived in Charleston for 5 years. And then I'm immediately flipping the conversation back to them, right? Which is, so you want to learn about them, their business, what's important to them, and get to know them, right? And what you're looking for are opportunities to deliver value with that person, right? You want to take the extra step to deliver value in that situation. What else might they assume about you? What else are they going to get to know just because you called? What are some things they might associate with you as the loan officer? These are not trick questions.
Able to be contacted.
Yeah. Yes, maybe. Yeah, for sure. You're going to be easily contacted on this deal, but actually just even more character, right? Number one, they're going to say, this person cares, right? If this person's making this phone call, it's because they care about their job, they care about their client, they care about their relationship. if I ask most realtors about loan officers, the number one thing they'll say is like, they don't answer the phone. They don't care. They're greedy. They just want the money. They want the deals, right? This person, if you're calling and you're advocating for your client and getting to know that other person by asking questions, they're going to think, wow, this person cares. That's the first thing that they're going to think about. Number two is, right, they're going to think that this person is going to then do this for me and my clients, right? Wow, my loan officer doesn't ever call to help me get my deals done. I wish I had a loan officer that was calling and advocating for those clients, right? And so it gives you an opportunity to separate yourself from the other loan officers that are trying to build relationships and work with that realtor. How many of you guys honestly think that you are maximizing the opportunity right now with sellers agents when you guys are creating those collisions? So tell me, how are those calls usually going? Or what's the approach? Who wants to share information? Who wants to be the teacher today?
I think they're going great. And I turn around, like, the first response I get from them is they're like, wow, nobody ever reaches out to me like this. And, you know, I send them my contact before I call them so that they know who's calling. And, you know, if they don't answer, I don't leave a message. I text them. That way they know what I'm calling about. And once I talk to them and have the collision, I turn around and immediately write them a thank you card for spending time talking with me. And, you know, kind of reassurance that we're going to have a solid transaction.
What about 13 by 30? Do you put them in for that too?
Yes. Well, yes, if I can get their stuff, yes, I am trying.
Yeah, I would get it, by the way. Be like, hey, listen, I'd love to send you some information. You know, if you shoot me over your address, I'll send you stuff. Or if you can't look it up, I'm always doing that. So guys, for you guys who are newer here or have not been through some of these trainings, I have what I call my 4 C's. It's collision, connection, card, and cookie. Okay. So from the time I say hello, that's my collision. Connection, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram at a minimum, right out of the gate every single time. And like Alan, if it's a cold call, I'm going to connect with them, or I'm bumping into an open house, I connect with them after I leave. Okay. If it's a warm call, meaning they're the seller's agent and I should be calling them as part of my process, just like Alan, I'm going to hit the connect button before I dial. When I call loan officers on recruiting calls that I know are interested in leaving, or if I know their company's having trouble, I connect with them on LinkedIn 2 minutes before I call. So if they happen to be looking at their phone, they see that alert for the connection request, they see my name pop up, and then I'm calling so they can have my information in front of them when I call. Right? So collision, connection, card, which you just heard Alan say, right? We just connected. Great. I met you at the open house. I met you at the networking event. You're the seller's realtor. Handwritten note cards. So nice to meet you. Hope we do business in the future. Put it in the mailbox and send. And then I'm sending out my 13 by 30 so that they get that cookie. I want every realtor that I meet to have those 4 points of contact for me over that first week, and then the continuing of my 13 by 30 journey over the first of this month, so that when I call them back 30 days from now, this person's going to be like, dude, do you have an army working for you? I see you on social media every day. Thank you, Dan Cooley. I'm getting cookies from you, cards from you. I'm getting emails from you. What's going on over there? Well, I'm really serious about my business, and we targeted you as somebody I really wanted to work with, and I just wanted to put my best foot forward. Would you mind meeting for coffee? You're going to bet 1,000 on that, right? This is the process: collision, connection, card, and cookie. So this seller's realtor, yes, we want to help get our client a deal. We want to put our best foot forward, but more importantly, this is a huge opportunity for us to get somebody new into our system. Now, here's the coolest part. How many of you guys have at least one borrower that has to put in multiple offers to get their house this year? Well, that sucks, right? Because you're not getting the deals, except for you get more free collisions out of every buyer. So in a normal market, your buyer might get you 1 collision. In this environment, your average buyer might get you 5 collisions. Well, when your goal is to get 250 collisions this year, which would be 5 a week with new realtors for 50 weeks a year, and now you have buyers that are each buyer's getting you 4, 5, 6, 10 collisions with new realtors because you're getting all these different times they're putting in offers. Now, all of a sudden, it's an opportunity for you to grow your business in this market because you're getting more organic, natural collisions. Anybody as a seller's realtor ever go to you like, why the fuck are you calling me when you call on this phone call? No, they know why you're calling. And by the way, it's normal for you to call. They respect the phone call. Now, normally when you're a loan officer calling a realtor, you don't know. They're like, what do you want? In this part of the situation, they're like, oh, wow, you're doing the responsible rate thing. Right. And so it's such an opportunity to go ahead and deliver value on that call. Brett, what'd you have to add?
I was going to add to your earlier point about calling the seller's agent that, this is one of my favorite trainings of yours because it's so important. And one of three things happens when I call. Either the person is so grateful for the call because they never get it, or they do what Kate said. Yeah, what's the credit score for this? Why is it FHA? What's their assets like? Or you get the opportunity for them to say, well, what I normally get is we're taking best offers till Sunday night, and I have 12 offers. We'll do the best we can. And what I was going to say is one of the things that's worked for me is to have a heartfelt reason why your person should win this house. For example, I most recently had somebody who was relocating to another state because their child had a disability, and this particular state had one of the best schools for this child to grow up in. I shared that with this person who told me they had 12 offers, and we won the deal. Now, is that the exact reason why we won? I don't know, but it is certainly a contributing factor. There is no harm that can be done by you calling the seller's agent. You obviously can't act like a blabbering fool, but you can absolutely share, all the cool stuff about your borrower with them, how well qualified they are, and how excited you are, more importantly, to meet them and be working with them. It's just so. Thank you, Mark, for the lesson. I think it's phenomenal.
Awesome. So, guys, and I'll just share, anybody else have anything else that works for them really well on these calls, or anything that stands out to them about the calls?
Yeah, when you call the seller's agent, if you tell them that they're already, well, we call it TBD, but if you tell them that they're already underwritten and ready to go, just need a house, that seems to really be working for us, because a lot of companies aren't doing that right now.
Mark, I also to that point reach out and ask them, are you familiar with desktop underwriting in our world, in the lending world? And more than half of them won't be, but the ones that are, they want to, you can kind of play into them think they're smart, right? So you say, well, I've already done that with this client, and so that's going to hopefully separate my client from some of the other ones that you're talking to. And that goes a long way a lot of times for those. And then the ones that don't, I just tell them, hey, there's three things an underwriter looks for: credit, loan to value, debt to income. I go through those three things very quickly. And the first two, I say, we've got loan programs for the first two, so that's never an issue. Usually I run into an issue with some debt to income, and I'll just say, in this case, these people have very little non-mortgage debt. Leave it like that.
I love that. Let me ask you guys a question. So there are rules, right? If there's a multiple bid situation, there are things one realtor can't ask the other realtor. You guys are familiar with some of that, right? Like the realtor can't be like, well, what's your other highest offer, or what, blah, blah, blah. But who can ask those other questions? You guys. There is no code of ethics as a loan officer for what you can and can't ask a realtor. Now, they may or may not want to tell you, but you would be surprised sometimes how much a realtor is willing to tell you if you ask the right questions. So sometimes they say like, hey, listen, I know this person's got 12 offers. What's going to be the difference? You know your client. What's going to be the difference in whether or not this person accepts an offer from somebody? What do you think is most important, right? And then if you can glean any sort of information that you can go back to your buyers with and say, listen, actually, the number one most important thing to this person is that they don't actually want to move out of the property for 90 days. If we're willing to do a 30-day close and rent back for 60 days, I think they'll take a lower offer. Now, that's something the realtors are never going to say to each other, right? And it's something that when they take the highest offer, and by the way, you'd be surprised how often something weird like that is important to a seller. Okay, they have some kind of weird thing, right? And by you asking that, now you can go out and put that into your offer. Wow, have you given your buyer a different kind of advantage in that process? Right? Or it might be like, hey, listen, actually what they really want even more than the highest price is a 3-week close. Well, first of all, 90% of loans at Princeton Mortgage are clear to close in 21 days or less, so no problem on our end. But let me go and see what my buyer can do. And or I'll certainly mention that to the buyer and see what we can do. Now all of a sudden you put in your offer 21-day close. That's more important than the $4,000 difference in between the best and highest offer. So you should be poking and prying to see it. And by the way, I ask it kind of in a light way. hey, listen, I know these conversations are kind of weird, but is there anything about your particular seller that is really important to them that would kind of make them feel better about an offer? Well, actually, and they might go like, it's weird. This one's got this. And it's like, boom, you come back to your first, you go back to your buyer's agent and you go, look what I found out. They're sending all their deals to forever moving forward. You've now delivered. Hey, what can I do as a loan officer to deliver more value? How about that as delivering more value?
I literally did this yesterday and I have a contract in my inbox.
Of course. Dude, it's huge. And by the way, this is why asking questions and listening is so important, because people are desperate to tell you stuff. But so often loan officers are so eager to be like, let me tell you how awesome I am. Let me tell you what I do for my clients, our great customer service scores, Princeton promise. It's like, they're like, blah, 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 blah. It's all they hear. Right? They're like, oh man, tell me how, congratulations, by the way, on getting this listing. How do you know the seller? That is a bag of, I found him through this thing. I found him through this thing, my church, my community, it's my brother, it's my best friend. All of a sudden, by the way, knowing the relationship between the seller and the seller's realtor can be huge in determining the best way to make an offer and building that relationship, right? It also tells you a lot about how that realtor does business, which is another clue into how you can deliver value to that person moving forward, right? It's like, I have a billboard in I-17. They called the number. Like, that tells you something about that agent, right? Like, you're looking for information. You want to go in kind of as a detective, right? What other questions do you guys have for these phone calls? Do you guys have questions on what to say when you call? For me, by the way, I go in with over-the-top Walt Disney World levels of enthusiasm. Hello, John. Hey, John, it's Mark Gordon over at Princeton Mortgage. I'm representing one of the offers that's being made on 123 Main Street is somebody who's using us for the loan. I just wanted to give you a call and let you know that John, who I'm representing, is super highly qualified. How's the listing process going so far? That's it. What do you guys go? What's your script for going in? Anything different than what I just said? Come on, tell me.
I just say I want to assure you of the strength of their financing and see after reviewing the offer if you had any questions on my side.
Cool. And then I would just go ahead and ask you more questions. How long have you been doing real estate? Or by the way, I usually do research before I call. So I see here you only moved to Charleston 3 years ago. How's it been moving your business down here? Anything else? Anything that you can do to gleam into getting that person to talk about themselves a little bit and build a relationship? I don't need the call to be 15 minutes, but I do want it to be more than 3. Right? I want to try to keep this person on the phone to build a relationship. I want them to remember me. Right? And this first step in know, like, and trust is building that initial collision. And then remember, connection, card, and cookie to go ahead and seal that up. Any other thoughts or questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
How hard do you try to contact the listing agent? Because I mean, I call virtually on every offer, unless the buyer's agent says not to, or it's but oftentimes I get voicemail and oftentimes I don't get a call back. And if that happens, I send a text, and if I have their email, I send an email. But if I do all those things, am I done, or am I supposed to, or do I need to try to call them again?
So here's just my strategy. I don't leave a voicemail first time, because then it makes it harder for me to call back. So here's what I normally do. I call, I then immediately text, right? So they don't answer, right? Hey, this is Mark Gordon over at Princeton Mortgage. I'm representing John Smith. He just made an offer on 123 Main Street. I just wanted to connect with you about the offer. I'll be around. I'll tell them I'll be around during this time period. Please give me a call back. I just want to have a quick conversation with you about the qualifications of the buyer. And then if I don't hear back in that window, so let's say it's 3 o'clock, I'll be available between 5 and 7 for if you can give me a call back. Then at 7 o'clock, I'm going to try back again, and I'm going to leave a voicemail. And then I'm going to send one more text. Just tried you again. Would love to connect if you have a chance. So that way, in that strategy, I'm getting 2 phone calls and 2 texts. Most of the time, I'm getting a response to that second text, if nothing else. People generally don't want to be that kind of rude, because again, you guys are in a small community, going to run into each other again. They can ignore a phone call. They can ignore a text. They can ignore, it's a busy day. I get 25 offers. They always have an excuse, right? But if you send a second text, they're normally responding. That second test is like they get in there like, shit, I didn't respond before. It's like this moment they have, and then they kind of usually respond to that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. And then I would just set a reminder for myself. So I send that first text. Hey Siri, set a reminder to call so and so back at 7 o'clock. Pops up on my phone, make the phone call again.
I do a little presumptive close at the end, Mark. I say, hey, should you choose my client, the only 2 things I need from them are updated pay stubs and bank statements, so we're ready to roll.
Yeah. Or even like, hey, listen, I'm sure you're going to do the right thing and pick my client, so I'm looking forward to working with you during this process.
Absolutely.
That's my personality. I would make a joke out of it and make the person laugh. But like, obviously, I'm just kidding, but I do hope we get to connect again real soon. And then I would go into it from there. I like to have fun. And by the way, if the realtor doesn't have a personality, we're not going to work together anyway. That's just my take on it. I like to get weird. So, what else? Any other questions around this topic?
After the fall, I would probably start leaving voicemails because it looks like Apple's adding real-time text to the voicemail. So it'll pop up on their phone and actually still give them the option to answer the phone, and you can start talking and it'll text it right there on their screen and tell them, hey, I'm blah, 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 and it'll text it out, and then they still have the opportunity to answer so that they can, catch it before you hang up on them, which I think is awesome.
As soon as that happens, I will change my strategy.
iOS 17 when it.
Yeah, I did see there's an update. I haven't had a chance to catch up on it yet. That's a good point. Alan, are you going to go out and get the $3,500 goggles?
No.
I'm embarrassed to tell you that I absolutely will. So.
Down the road, maybe, but need to close some deals to do that.
Let's do it. All right, guys, I'm going to cut it a little short today. Please rate the training. Let me know what you guys thought. Make sure you're calling those sellers, realtors. By the way, we're up to a huge 2-day start to this week, like our best one in a long time. So let's keep the momentum going. Team Shapiro, by the way, putting up a 10 spot or something yesterday. So let's keep it going. And I will see you guys in training tomorrow. Happy selling, everybody.